Well, I was 26. Okay, so I was a newlywed, been married 2 years. I was working in the real estate business, buying rental property and renovating houses, and I'd been doing that just a couple years. So, you know, I really had just kind of felt like I was just being an adult. You know what I mean? Like out of college, a couple of years, working, newlywed, and I started having abdominal pain.
And this was what year?
This was 2003.
Okay.
And I thought I had an ulcer. You know, I'd never had any illness before, never had any major, you know, the flu when I was a kid or something, but nothing major. And I thought, I don't know, is this an ulcer? Like, what's going on? And I had this pain that would come and go. And it was kind of like Groundhog Day, you know, because every morning I would wake up and I'd immediately think, like, how do I feel? And I'd be like, oh, I feel good. Okay, no pain. And then I'd go throughout the day, but then I would get these twinges of pain, you know, most days. And I'd be like, oh, there it is again. And then I'd go to sleep, kind of worried about it. And then I'd wake up and well, no pain, right? And so that kind of went on for many months. And I kept thinking maybe my body would get better because my body had always healed in the past. And I believe that the body is designed to heal. And so, but the problem was I didn't make any changes in my life, right? I didn't understand cancer at the time. And so I just kept living my life the way I was living it, which was in a very unhealthy way. And this pain got worse and worse. And eventually I went to a doctor and they thought I had an ulcer and gave me some medication that didn't help. And then I, through a series of doctor's appointments, eventually ended up at a gastroenterologist who did a colonoscopy and found a golf ball sized tumor in my large intestine. And, you know, I came out of the procedure, they had put me under, and I woke up and, you know, I was still medicated. You know, it was like, where am I? What's happening? Mm-hmm. And the doctor came in and he basically said, you know, we found this tumor, you might have cancer, we have to send it to the lab. And, you know, my wife started crying on the nurse's shoulder, and I was just like, what's going on? You know, I mean, I wasn't even... You
were at that time, how old were you?
I was 26.
26 years old.
And so at that moment, I wasn't even sober, you know what I mean? So it didn't even really make sense. It just felt like a dream that I didn't understand. But a couple days later, I got the call from the doctor, and he said, listen, you know, the lab report came back, you have colon cancer. And so that was heavy. And, you know, that's kind of when my life came to a grinding halt. And then they took out the tumor, they took out a bunch of lymph nodes. The surgeon said, look, I took out everything I could see. We got clear margins, but you're going to need 9 to 12 months of chemotherapy. But there were a few things that happened in the hospital that were very serendipitous that really started the wheels turning. And one of them was the first meal that they served me.
And this is after your operation?
After my operation.
Okay, where they had removed 18 inches.
Yes, they cut out 18 inches of my large intestine, 18 centimeters.
18 centimeters.
A third, right? And the first meal they served me was a sloppy Joe. And I'm kind of famous for the sloppy Joe story because it's the most ridiculous food that you could serve a sick person, right? It's the best example of the worst cafeteria food. You know what I mean? What is the worst cafeteria food you can think of? It's a sloppy Joe.
Right.
And that's what they gave me. First meal after, you know, cutting my abdomen open, removing part of my guts. And they set it in front of me, and I was just looking at it going, this doesn't seem like the best thing for me right now.
Just innately you knew.
Yeah, right. I mean, I wouldn't even eat that. I wouldn't want to eat that anytime. Okay, right. I'm never in the mood for a sloppy Joe, and so not only was I not really happy about that as a food choice, but I just thought, you know, like this is like a hospital. This is like full of sick people. Shouldn't we be feeding them better than this? Like, shouldn't I be eating like some applesauce or something? You know, at that time I really didn't know anything about nutrition, but just my instincts, you know, the red flag kind of went up. The next thing that happened was the day I was checking out from the hospital, the surgeon came in to check on me, and I said, hey, you know, is there anything I need to eat or avoid or whatever? And because I was a little concerned. I didn't want to go home and like eat something like some Doritos and like screw it up. And he was like, nah, just don't lift anything heavier than a beer.
That was the nutritional advice you got.
Yep, that was it. And so I reluctantly agreed to go see the oncologist. And we're sitting in the clinic in Memphis. Well, first of all, the parking lot's packed. Couldn't even get a parking place. And the waiting room's packed. I sit down, I'm looking around, and there's no one in there even remotely near my age. I'm 26, I've got long shaggy hair, a handlebar mustache, like rock dude. And I'm just kind of, checking it out. Who else is in the cancer club? It was me and a bunch of seniors, senior citizens,
Right.
Not high school or college seniors. And I just thought, God, I don't belong here. The television was on, and out comes Jack LaLanne right as I'm sitting in the cancer clinic couch, and he starts going off about nutrition and fruits and vegetables, and the reason we're sick is because we're all eating junk food, right? And if man made it, don't eat it. And I was like, oh man, he's just speaking to me through the television right now. Like, this is exactly, he's reaffirming everything that I had just started to understand. And we go in to see the oncologist finally. It's like you wait in a waiting room for an hour, and then they put you in a smaller waiting room for another hour, and then you get in another little room. Eventually, the oncologist comes in, and it was just very robotic. They see 20 patients, 30, 40 patients a day, and he just comes in. He looked at my chart, I'm sure, for 2 minutes. What's this guy got? Comes in and gives me the standard pitch. He said, look, you've got stage 3 colon cancer. You have... with therapies, you have a 60% chance of living 5 years. And I thought...
At the age of 26,
yeah.
What did you think of those odds?
Yeah, I was not impressed by those odds. And I thought, gee, that's not much better than a coin toss.
That's true.
50-50.
Just
not much. And I asked him if there were any alternative therapies available. And he said, no, there are none. If you don't do chemotherapy, you're insane.
You literally said you're insane.
Yeah. Yep. I asked him about the raw food diet. He said, no, you can't do that. It'll fight the chemo.
Why would it fight the chemo?
At the time, I was like, what does that mean? Well, later I found out that a raw food diet is a very aggressive detoxification diet. And when you're on a raw food diet, your body starts kicking out chemotherapy. And it doesn't do what they want it to do. It doesn't destroy your body. And it doesn't do the damage they want it to do. And so they don't want you to be on a raw food diet. The other reason is because chemotherapy is also very destructive on your immune system. And bacteria that's normally harmless on an apple, let's say, could pose a potential problem in your body because your immune system is so weak from chemo. So they don't want you to do raw food. I was already on the raw food diet. I've been on it for a week. I was like, hardcore. I just adopted it, right? I was excited about it. Going into the clinic, I felt very confident about what I was doing. And everything else he's told me, everything else the oncologist said to me is really a blur, because he really scared me so bad that I kind of shut down. And I walked into the clinic confident, and I walked out terrified. And I went to the desk and I made an appointment to get a port put in to start chemotherapy. And my wife and I walked out into the parking lot, and we sat in her car and we held hands and we cried and we prayed and we were just terrified. And I believe that was on a Friday, because I had a few days before they were supposed to put this port in. I think it might have been like a Monday or Tuesday or something.
And when you say a port, they're putting in a port so they don't have to inject you with chemo. They can just put it directly into the port each time.
That's right. They put a port in your chest. It's basically a direct line into your arteries or whatever, your veins, arteries. So it's easier than giving you a
IV.
Yeah, it destroys your veins. So a port is a better way to do it, because chemotherapy is so toxic that it destroys your veins. So yeah, they just scared me so bad that I agreed to chemotherapy, even though I had originally decided not to. And But over that weekend, I kind of came to my senses again, and I thought about my life, and I thought about this book, and I thought about Jack LaLanne, and I thought about the weird stuff the oncologist said to me. One other thing he said, I forgot. He said, in sort of in the middle of his pitch, he said, look, man, he's like, look, I'm not telling you this because I need your business. And I just thought, why in the world would you say that? What does business have to do with it? Yeah. Right? And then I realized, wait a minute, this is a business. This is his business. He needs patients to make money.
And this is the same oncologist told you were insane if you didn't do chemo.
That's right. Same guy.
Okay.
And it was like a Freudian slip. You know what I mean? Either that or it was the push away, which is a sales technique. And where they, you kind of give someone like, I don't really need your business. And it kind of makes them want to do business with you. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I thought about everything and I thought, you know what? Nutrition makes more sense to me. I would rather overdose on nutrition and give my body everything that it can use to repair and regenerate and detoxify and heal and trust God to lead me in the process than let someone who doesn't even know me at all, probably has already forgotten my name, poison me and experiment on me with a 60% chance of living 5 years. I found out later that he was lying. What he told me was that I had a 60% chance of living 5 years. But that's the average for all cancer patients. So if you take every cancer patient, lump them in one group, and average it out, you get 60% of them make it to the 5-year mark. Doesn't mean they're cancer-free at 5 years. It just means they have a beating heart.
Okay.
Some of them are on life support, right? Some of them are knocking on heaven's door. They are dying. But they still are counted as a success toward 5-year survival. Well, the odds for stage 3 colon cancer, stage 3C, were about 30% make it to 5 years. And only 16% make it 10 years.
Wow. So
here I am, 10 years, without their therapies.
Okay, so 10 years out and cancer-free.
Yeah.
So you decided not to do chemotherapy.
That's right.
So before you got the port put in, I assume.
I was a no-show for the port.
Okay.
After that, they sent me a certified letter. They were calling my house. They were after me to try to get me to do chemotherapy. And I just was, avoiding their calls and like, leave me alone. Like, I've made up my mind. This is what I'm doing.
Did you ever talk to the oncologist about the phony statistics or the incorrect statistics that he gave you? Because
I never
clearly
went
that
back.
was not accurate.
No, I never went back. Okay. And I know why he did it. He did it because he knew the truth was extremely discouraging. If he'd come in and said, look, with the therapies we have available, you've got about a 30% chance of living 5 years. I would have been out the door in 5 seconds.
Right.
See ya. But he told me 60% because he thought, well, maybe this will sound better. This will be more encouraging. Maybe it'll give him more hope. Right? It'll make the treatment sound more appealing. Right? 60 is way better than 30. So that's why I did it. That's why I did it. It's just basic economics. They need a steady supply of patients to make money. And, doctors aren't bad people, but they're trained. They go to med school and they have residency, and it takes 15, 20 years for a doctor to go through all the training and actually go through enough practice before they realize that everything they've been trained to do doesn't really work, and that most of their patients end up dying. And by that time, it's too late to change careers. Right. And they're making a high 6-figure income. The average oncologist makes almost $300,000 a year. And yet, in a survey that just came out about a month ago on Medscape, 52% of oncologists reported that they were unsatisfied with their income.
Wow. And the average makes over
$290,000 a year.
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money to be unsatisfied
But it's not
about.
enough, apparently.
Guess it's not enough. So, from there, I was totally trusting in God to lead me at that point, because it's like, all right, everybody thinks I'm crazy. I'm alone. I was very much alone.
So once you made the decision to avoid chemo and to overdose on nutrition, as you put it, you told your family. What was their reaction like?
Well, they weren't comfortable with it. They thought I was being stubborn and hard-headed and foolish. My mom was a big supporter of me. My mom's always been into health food. She's always been sort of a health junkie. And so she was a huge, huge ally for me at that time. And I love my wife. We're still married. We've been together 18 years. But she was terrified.
Congratulations.
Thank you. She didn't know what to do. She didn't know how to help me. And she really thought I was making a mistake, and a lot of other people did too. But I had to trust that God was leading me, that He had answered my prayer, and if so, that I could trust that that was the route that would lead me ultimately to health. So I had very little support, and I was very much alone in the beginning. But what's neat is my mom had a bunch of books about alternative cancer therapy and a bunch of books about health and stuff written by Paul Bragg and all kinds of these just great health books that she had collected over the years for no real reason. And as soon as I started reading and researching and found out about, different authors and books and health leaders and experts, and I would mention them to her, she'd say, "Oh, I have that book." And I'm like, "You've got this library of books, like for me, Yeah. There was no other reason. She was like saving them up for me and didn't realize it.
She was collecting them for you over the years and didn't know what the purpose was until now.
Yeah. And it was stuff, obviously she was interested in them, but she had saved them all. And so that was amazing. I mean, I just knew God was in control. I knew He was working. And so what did my diet look like? It was very simple, and I think a hardcore nutritional approach to cancer needs to be very simple because there are a lot of options out there. It can get very complicated, and a lot of people they're seeing so many different directions they don't even know where to go, and they get paralyzed. And so I realized, okay, what is the most fundamental, foundational part of my healing approach, and that's food. I've got to get as much nutrition in my body as I can from the earth. And so I started juicing, and I drank about 64 ounces of vegetable juice every day, mostly carrot juice. I ate giant salads full of cruciferous and allium vegetables. That's broccoli, cauliflower, kale, cabbage, onions, garlic, peppers, right? Just spinach, all that good stuff.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
Making me
just
hungry.
the amazing giant salad. We shared one at Jason's Deli recently. Yeah, just a giant salad full of like all this really amazing food from the earth that was put here for us. And I ate that twice a day. And then I would make fruit smoothies with a fresh coconut and berries, 2 cups of blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, strawberries. Berries are very potent anti-cancer fruits. And that was it. That was the daily diet. And it was every day. And I did that for 90 days. It was 100% raw food for 90 days. I was working with a naturopath, and he checked my blood work and my urine and my hair samples and all kinds of stuff. And he helped me modify the diet. He had me on different supplements that he thought would help boost my immune system, help deal with any parasites, or help detoxify, just sort of address those things that are common to a lot of cancer patients. Cancer is the product of a sick body. You're sick, you have cancer because you're sick, not the other way around. Right?
So cancer is really the symptom.
Cancer is the symptom of a sick body. And you cannot cut a tumor off or shrink a tumor or poison a tumor and expect to stay well and stay healthy because you're not addressing the real problem, you're only addressing the symptom. And it's like cutting off your nose to get rid of a cold. It doesn't solve the real underlying problem.